Hey there, this is Paul Johnson, and welcome to another episode of my trucking vlog. And today I'm going to give you a little bit update. I just finished the first phase of my over-the-road training, where I did 25,000 miles with Wilson Logistics, where I was team driving with a trainer. And I am sort of in limbo right now, where I'm getting ready to do 25 to 30,000 miles with another student. And once that's done, then they'll finally cut me loose and I'll be driving by myself. And lots happened since then. And so let's go ahead and get to it. So the whole point of this vlog is not just to sort of record my journey and show you what it's like for someone to go from not knowing jack squat about trucking and just showing you what it's like to actually break into the trucking trade. Especially in the context of going with Wilson Logistics, but this is also I'm hoping that this vlog would also help other people who are wanting to break into the trucking trade, and this would give you sort of a baseline, an idea, an example on how it works. And that's why I showed you like diagrams on a chalkboard and all that stuff. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to use a chalkboard again, because I'm I'm officially someone who lives on the road, and the only reason I'm in a hotel right now is because there's a sort of X amount of things that I need to do before I start driving again for another 25 to 30,000 miles. And so I'm going to tell you how the process works now. So far I've already covered in my vlog that I showed you how I went about getting a CDL permit, a Class A CDL permit. And then I showed you how I went from that all the way to actually having a CDL. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened during this phase of over-the-road training that I just completed. During that time, I had what it's called like a temporary printout piece of paper. That was my official CDL license, and but that was only good for so long. I eventually had to actually go to Martinsburg, West Virginia, where I started out at, and go to the DMV there. And for those of you who don't really know, I was a welder for like 13 years, all the way up until the pandemic hit in 2020, and at that time I was fabricating the best mini hydraulic excavators and small track type tractors for Caterpillar. And it was a cool trade. I loved welding, I loved building things, I loved working with my hands, but the trade was kind of unstable, and as it is. And then when the pandemic hit, it's like, okay, Caterpillar was like the most stable job I've ever had in my life at the time, and then they just started shutting the factory down. And that kind of forced me down a path where I started door dashing for a while, because door dashing really kicked up because everyone's staying home and ordering from home and all that stuff. And then through that, I kind of discovered that I enjoyed driving for a living. And I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I make more money doing that? And also I started to consider other career paths, since circumstances sort of forced my way, because I realized, you know what, I can't weld for the rest of my life. I need to find something better. And it just so happened around that time Elon Musk started landing rockets, and I've always had an interest in aerospace engineering, so I started falling down sort of a starship engineering rabbit hole. And I even dabbled in 2 different colleges. I went to a technical college just to take a few classes on campus in Athens, and then I attended Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University online, and this is all between 2020 until now. And I was just seeing, okay, which method of learning is best for me, but while I was doing that, I realized, you know what, I don't want to be up to my eyeballs in student loan debt by the time I graduate college. So I wanted to figure out a way to make some money, and so I could, not be in debt, because around that time I just finished clawing my way out of like $40,000 worth of debt, because I went through time in my 20s, I couldn't manage money for shit, and I just finished cleaning up that mess, and I didn't want to go back into debt because it sucked. And I put my ambitions of going to college on hold, and my ambitions was I wanted to study engineering and physics because I wanted to do my own Starship technology research and development. Because around that time, I also discovered that warp drive theory is no longer science fiction, that there are scientists all around the world that are actually working on that are basically working to figure out how to travel faster than the speed of light without breaking physics. And then we have a huge uptick in interplanetary travel as opposed to interstellar travel that's actually becoming a thing now with SpaceX, for example. And China's actually trying to create their own Starship program as well, which I think is kind of cool. But so it's like I wanted to be a part of that because I feel like that humanity's getting ready to take that the next. We've already taken our first steps into space during the Apollo era, but now it looks like we're getting ready to take our next steps into space. But I had to put all those ambitions aside because my life was just really unstable. And I eventually went to Mexico for a little while, and I volunteered in an aerospace program down there to sort of test the waters and say, hey, is this really something I want to do? And it is something I want to do, but the aerospace program failed. And I ended up coming back to the U.S. And by then, as you know, I kind of fell in love with Mexico and the culture there. And now I just want to immigrate to Mexico, and so that's what I've been kind of obsessed with for the last couple of years, is just trying to figure out a good immigration plan. And now you know that my immigration plan is to study Spanish, and while I'm studying Spanish, become a trucker, be a trucker for a couple of years, save up a certain amount of money so that I could go down to Mexico and settle down there. And then once I guess set roots and I'm stable in Mexico, then I will go back to finishing my education in engineering and physics, because because now at this point, I've learned enough about that stuff. Now I got my own ideas. I have an idea for a new kind of rocket. I have an idea for a new kind of drone, all that stuff. But so here I am. I'm no longer making plans. I'm working my plan. And now when I was now back to the me getting into the trucking trade. After I passed my CDL test, the next step was for me to do 25,000 miles with a trainer where I'm team driving. And if you're curious, I'm operating a Freightliner Cascadia. I don't know what year, but I have been told by Wilson that they don't use any trucks that are more than 2 years old. So it's either a 2023 or 2024 model. This year, likely, their trucks are going to be like a 2024, 2025. So probably 2023 to 2025 models, I guess, that's what they'll be using this year. It's not the best truck in the world, but it's making me money, so that's good enough for me. Now, while I was doing the 25,000 miles, it started in December. And in the middle of the training, I ended up having a few weeks off because my trainer wanted to go home and spend some time with his family. But I've been technically homeless since 2020, because when the 2020 pandemic hit, I kind of lost a lot of stuff. And when you go from fabricating bulldozers to delivering food from restaurants, you're not going to make that much money. So I was staying with my sister at a house that she bought, and which I'm kind of proud of her, because this house that she has it's the first time she's ever financed a house, and she's actually doing pretty good in her life. She's a property manager, and which more power to her. So she let me stay at her place, and I've been trying to figure out how to get up on my feet, but at the same time trying to figure out how to pursue my dreams and all that shit. But you can't really do anything unless you get stable, and I've been kind of unstable for the last ever since the pandemic. However, that's changed thanks to me getting in the trucking trade now. And so, like, on paper, my address is my sister's house. So when my trainer went home, I ended up having to go back to stay at my sister's house for about 3 weeks. And it was originally going to be 2 weeks, but weather got bad and turned into 3 weeks. And but while I was there, I had to go to the DMV, and then I had to fill out some paper. I had to show them, fill out some paperwork, pay like a $70-something fee, take a picture, and then and then I had to start the process of waiting 7 to 10 business days for my hard copy CDL license to come in the mail. What happens is that when you get that, for those of you who don't know, when it comes in the mail, it's your for me, it was my driver's. It became my driver's license, my motorcycle endorsement, and my CDL, all wrapped in under one plastic card, which is great because when I had my CDL permit, it was a plastic card CDL permit that was separate from my driver's license plastic card. So now it's all one card, and which is nice. And but something kind of weird, happened the day before my trainer came to pick me up to finish the training, which is like I think it was January 4th or January 8th is when he picked me up. And but the day before, I got a letter in the mail from the DMV saying that they have to correct the spelling of my middle name on my CDL. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, this means if I go in there, they're going to end up fix whatever's wrong with it, and then I'm going to have to wait another 7 to 10 business days. And it's like, okay, am I going to have to go all the way back there? Because who knows what state I'll be in, because it's over-the-road trucking. So I went ahead, I called up my trainer and asked him, hey, what do I do about this? And he said that I did the right thing by informing him. He told me to go ahead and just do what needs to be done, and we'll figure out from there. So I did what my trainer told me to do, and it turns out what happened is that, okay, my middle name is Matthew, and I've been spelling my middle name wrong my whole freaking life. I had no idea. I've been spelling with one T. And I mean, it's one T on my. It's always been one T on my driver's license, on my CDL permit. It's always been one T on my voter registration card. It's one T on my Social Security card. But for some reason, it was two T's on my passport, and I thought that was a typo on my passport. And I just kind of was like lazy about it. I was like, I never really bothered to get around to try to fix that typo. Because I never had problems getting through customs, going back and forth to Mexico, so I'm like, okay, whatever. But I finally discovered why it's two T's on my passport. Apparently, my middle name is two T's on my birth certificate. So, and that's what triggered this whole thing of me having to fix my middle name on my CDL. And I learned that, they explained that to me at the DMV. So I basically had to take another picture, fill out some paperwork. I didn't have to pay the $70-something fee again. And then it started the process of another 7 to 10 business days for the card to come in the mail. And then I have this fresh, new printout piece of paper that's only good for 60 days. So how I dealt with that issue is that I just had my sister, I just had my family mail my new CDL when it came in the mail to the Wilson Logistics Terminal, and it was mailed directly to my fleet manager. And then when we had to go from Utah to take a load from Utah all the way to somewhere in Georgia, we just stopped in Missouri along the way for me to pick up my CDL. And it just so happened that my trainer had got sort of like a bureaucratic tap on the shoulder for a random drug test, so he had to do a random drug test anyway. So I picked up my new CDL at the terminal. So that's how that issue was solved. And because my address technically on paper is my sister's address, because you need a physical address to function in society, but technically I'm living on the road. I'm living out of the truck. So that helped me until I finished my 25,000 miles with my trainer. And it was great because I learned a lot of things that you can't learn in a classroom. Like when I first started driving a semi-truck, I was a nervous wreck. I mean, it was intimidating, especially heavy traffic. But the cool thing is that my first month team driving with a trainer, I was immediately all going all over the East Coast, and I was going all through the Appalachian Mountains and the Smoky Mountains, in the rain and the snow and the ice and everything. But I did that with the trainers, so I basically got to learn how to handle all those extreme weather conditions and learn how to check for weather, check for wind conditions, because you got to keep an eye on wind wind conditions, because wind conditions are so bad that if you drive in those conditions, it'll literally blow your tractor and trailer off the road. So you have to keep an eye on that stuff. And so I got to learn how to do all that stuff. I got to learn how to do the paperwork that comes with it. I have a basic skill set of backing up. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to backing up to a dock and backing up between two tractor trailers and a truck stop. I can do it now. I have to get out and look like half a dozen times, but so I'm nowhere near as efficient as my trainer. But of course, my trainer, he's been a lease operator for 16 years now, or at least a trucker for 16 years. So of course he's going to be way more efficient than I am. But from what I learned from him, it's just an matter of that issue will solve itself. The more I do it, the easier to get over time. So that's not a big deal. And but when I finished my 25K, what happened is that my trainer went all the way to the Wilson terminal. We dropped the trailer for someone else to pick up and continue that load, and he then went ahead and bobtailed it all the way to a hotel, and where Wilson Logistics is paying for a hotel for me to stay at. And the plan was for me to stay here just for a few days. And what I was supposed to do is that I was supposed to do what's called a road test evaluation, where it's basically the same road test that I took when I was earning my CDL to make sure I know how to drive. But there was a few added things added in there, like they they had me actually simulate backing into a parking spot at a TA truck stop to make sure that I know how to do it. And it took me about, I think, like 8 or 9 minutes. And I thought I failed because from my perspective, it took forever to wiggle your way into the parking spot safely. So I thought, oh crap, I failed the evaluation. And I got out of my truck, and the evaluator was actually standing off watching me from the outside. I walked up to him and I said, look, man, I know I failed my evaluation. What happens now? And he says, oh, you didn't fail your evaluation. You have 20 minutes to depart. And I was like, oh, cool. So I got it done in half the time. So apparently I'm a lot better than I thought it was. So, that's the only thing that I'm left really that I'm struggling on, is that I know how to trip plan. I know how to not be too dependent on trucker GPS, because that gets you in trouble. So, I'm actually doing a lot better than I think I am. But the other things that I had to do before I get on the road again with a student is that I'm going to have to I was supposed to be taking a class today that I guess it's a class that teaches you trip planning and other stuff about the job that I've already learned from my trainer, but I guess they just need to do some kind of brick and mortar class on it or whatever. And then after that, the procedure is for me to go to start driving. They'll set me up with another truck and a student. And but it just so happened that something interesting happened during my OTR training, like when I was on the road. Apparently, I needed glasses. I had no idea, because when I went and did my 2 DOT physicals, they did a sort of quick eye exam, and they said my eyesight was good. And I always thought I had good eyesight. I mean, there was a time in my life when I did an eye exam, I had 20/10 vision, but that was like 15 years ago. And but my trainer thought that I wasn't paying attention to the signs, because one common problem with students is not learning to pay attention to signs on the road, which there was an issue with that, but after a few weeks I was fine. But it still seemed like I was not, from my trainer's perspective, it seemed like I wasn't paying attention to signs, because there's been a few times where I missed an exit and we had to do a huge detour because you're not allowed to do U-turns, and it's not exactly a good idea to do that on a tractor trailer. Finally, I was wondering if there's just something wrong with my eyes. So I had a thing where with my trainer, me and my trainer compare our eyesight with one another, where we would pick a random sign on the highway, and he'd tell me when he can read it, and then we'd pick another sign, and he finds out how close it has to be for me to be able to actually read it. in terms, he basically telling me, he's like, Paul, you need to get glasses. You know, you're blind as a bat. I'm like, I took his word for it. So what I did is that while I'm here staying at a hotel waiting to get certain things done before I get back on the road for my second phase of OTR training, I went ahead and went to one of those places where you get an eye exam and you walk out with glasses the same day. And I did that yesterday, so I finally got me a pair of glasses. And yeah, I had no idea until I put these damn glasses on. And yeah, I am pretty much blind like a bat. I was oblivious to it, because when you have bad vision and you don't know that you have bad vision, you get accustomed to how things look. But I'm glad that I got that over with. But for those of you who ending up having to get glasses, I did discover something that there is some compliance paperwork that I'm going to have to do in the compliance department next time I'm at the terminal that I guess is required when you have glasses. And I don't know the exact details. It's something about adding something to my DOT certificate, you know, my medical card certificate. So I'll figure that out when I get to the terminal. And I was supposed to, today's Tuesday. Let me see, is it Tuesday? Oh, yeah, today's Tuesday, and I was supposed to go and actually do those classes I just told you about at the terminal and do the compliance paperwork, but it just so happened, and I was supposed to go back on the road tomorrow, Wednesday, but I woke up and we have a big-ass snowstorm, and it's going to be like 12 to 15 inches, and my fleet manager sent me a text message saying that, you know, that I'm just staying at the hotel today, and I guess they'll let me know when it's time to go back to the terminal. She said that I'll probably end up going to terminal tomorrow. We'll see how bad the weather is, though. And I probably won't get back on the road till Thursday, but it's all about how the weather is, because yeah, when it snows pretty bad, they tell you to not bother even driving on the road. And I've heard a lot of super truckers be like, oh yeah, it could be a foot of snow out there, it was still dry, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, well, the thing is that I was a welder for 13 years before I got into the trucking trade. And I know one funny thing that I've noticed a lot when it comes to super welders is that it seems like the welders that suck the most are the ones that have been welders for 20-something years, because they get too confident for their own good. They end up having an attitude where safety is for sissies, and those are the welders that end up going blind. And those are the ones that like don't use automatic welding hoods, and they're always getting burned and injured and all that stuff. So it doesn't surprise me if there's fools like that in the trucking trade where they think that safety is for sissies, and then they end up being the next trucker accident video that you see on Facebook or social media somewhere, where you got a bunch of truckers crashing into each other in the middle of a blizzard, when they could have just pulled over and waited for the storm to wait for weather to get a little better. And there's actually been a couple times where me and my trainer, when I was doing my first 25,000 miles, where weather did get bad, and we actually stayed at a truck stop for a couple days until weather got better and it was safe to drive on the road. And I've learned that there's other truckers that make fun of truckers who choose to be safe like that. But the thing is, I'm 38. I'm turning 39 next month, and I'm too old to care what other people think. But I do find it amusing that you got these people that think that safety is for sissies, and they're the ones that get injured all the time. They're the reason why we have those are the people. Those people are why we always have safety briefings. It's why we can't have nice things. But so now I'm just waiting for the weather to get better so I can do the compliance paperwork due to having glasses now, and classes and all the other stuff. And I'm just hanging out until then. But I will give you a word of advice. If you're wanting to get into the trucking trade, if I knew last year what I know now, as soon as you finish getting a CDL permit, and you got your DOT certificate and all that stuff, I highly, highly recommend, if you're serious about getting into the trucking trade, to go to one of those eye places and get a professional eye examination done and find out whether or not you need glasses. Because I'm going to tell you something, me not being able to read signs very well on the road really held me back and it made it a lot more frustrating than it already is to learn how to navigate, learn how to do trip planning. And it's already hard enough to learn to pay more attention to signs as it is, because you don't really have to pay much attention to signs unless you're a professional commercial driver. Then you really got to pay attention to signs on the highway, and that's a skill set in and of itself that you'll develop. But it's more difficult if you're fucking blind like me. So make it easy on yourself and find out if you need glasses if you're getting into the trucking trade, and get that over with before you even get your CDL. And you'll thank me later, because oh my goodness, that the way things look with glasses on versus how they look without these glasses, I can't go without glasses now. And so I'm glad that happened. And another great thing that happened is I had no idea that I needed a CPAP machine, but going through this whole process, I now use a CPAP machine every night, and the quality of sleep is amazing. I feel amazing when I wake up. 6 hours of sleep feels like 12 hours of sleep. And that's very helpful when you're on the road because sometimes you can only sleep for about 5 hours, or sometimes you have a hard time sleeping because you're in the sleeper berth, and if you're team driving, you're driving and you're bouncing all over the place, but so your quality of sleep isn't that good. But if you use a CPAP machine, it greatly helps. And so those are some good things that came out of all this huge maze that I have to navigate while I'm trying to become a trucker. So I hope this video helps. I hope this whole vlog series helps folks out there that are looking to get in the trucking trade. And also, I've been on the fence on whether or not to be a company driver or a lease operator. And here's the thing, I want to give some advice for those of you out there who are also on the fence and you're trying to learn, try to weigh the pros and cons. I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, when you talk to experienced truckers, they will swear up and down that you need to stay away from being a lease operator, that in many cases you'll make more money as a company driver. But you have to understand the context. You have to consider the context of their advice when they say that. What company did they work for that gave them the experience and the knowledge to know to tell you stuff like that? Because each company is different. And in the content, like for example, I was doing the thing where I was going to different trucker forums and even hanging out at actual truck stops, asking truckers for advice. And the most common advice I get is that, hey, you need to be a company driver. You make less money, but it's a lot less of a hassle, etc. And from my impression, I think for the most part they're right, but it's all about context, dude. Like, consider the context of advice people are giving you. They're only giving you their perspective. So I had to figure out, okay, what is it like being a company driver versus lease operator in the context of working for Wilson Logistics, because that's the company I'm going for. And it just so happened that my over-the-road trainer, he's been a trucker for 16 years. The majority of those years is with Wilson Logistics. For a period of time, he was a company driver, and for a period of time, he was a lease operator. And he was a lease operator by the time he started training me. So he took me down the numbers, he showed me the expenses, and it looks like in the context of someone like me who's not married, doesn't have kids, doesn't want to even bother renting an apartment somewhere and just wants to live out of his truck and not try to actually buy a house or build a house until after I moved to Mexico. For someone like me in that specific context, looks like lease operating is going to be good for me. And looks like I could easily make about $100,000 after taxes and after expenses and all that stuff within the first 12 months of me being a lease operator with Wilson. Also, another good thing for me is that it's a walk-away lease, which a lot of people are like, oh no, that's not a good idea. If you're going to lease, you want to be a lease purchase operator, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing, man. When it comes time for me to move to Mexico, I don't want to go through the whole hassle of trying to sell a heavily used tractor with a gazillion miles on it and probably falling apart. So I just want to be able to walk away. And once I reach my X amount of money in savings, I want to be able to just skedaddle, and so that makes it easier for me. So for me personally, in my situation, someone who doesn't even want to date until he goes to Mexico, yeah, it's perfect for me. So I'm going to be a lease operator. And the cool thing though about choosing to be a lease operator for Wilson Logistics is that, let's just say I do it for about 3 or 4 months, and I realize, hey, you know what, this ain't working out for me. I'd rather be a company driver. All I got to do is just make a phone call to my fleet manager, say, hey, look, this ain't working out. I think I'm better off being a company driver. And what'll happen is that within a month or two, I'll be a company driver. And if like 6 months down the road, I say, you know what, I want to be a lease operator again, they'll make me a lease operator again. And a perfect example is that my trainer, who's a lease operator, he doesn't want to train students anymore. He just wants to be a solo lease operator driver. And it's just because they made some changes at Wilson Logistics. He doesn't really like the changes, and he just he just wants to be solo driving after that. So that's what all he got to do is that he's just gonna have a talk with his fleet manager, and he will be going solo and not training anymore. So that's how flexible Wilson Logistics is. Now, for all I know, all trucking companies are like that, but I don't know. I only know about what it's like to become a trucker in the context of going the apprentice route for Wilson Logistics. So who knows how different other companies are. I will tell you this, I'm very thankful that I chose Wilson Logistics over the fact that the biggest hazard that I've dealt with on the road, safety-wise, is other truck drivers. And I thought the biggest hazard would be just normal drivers, but the huge hazard has been other truck drivers. And I was asking my trainer about it, and apparently it's very common for a lot of trucking companies to half-ass their training when it comes to those who do the apprentice route, and those are like me who can't afford to go to an official trucking school, and they have to do it the apprentice route way, and the training is really half-ass. And so if those of you out there are considering getting the trucking trade, my advice to you is that if you can afford to actually go to a college and take like a 1 to 2 month long course on earning a CDL that way, if you can afford it, please go that way. You will learn a lot more. That option wasn't available to me because I'm broke. Hopefully in about 6 months I won't be broke anymore. But so if you can afford it, go that way. But if you can't, and you need to do the apprentice route like me, I highly recommend Wilson Logistics, because Wilson Logistics has the most extensive training program there is. Because it started off with me doing 10,000 miles and then doing a CDL test, earn the CDL, and then doing 25,000 miles over the road with a trainer. And then now I'm going to be doing 25 to 30,000 miles. I don't know which it is, because my trainer said 25,000 miles, and I've heard other people say 30,000. So it's somewhere between 25 to 30,000 additional miles I'm going to be doing with a fellow student. And then I think there's another evaluation after that, and then they'll upgrade me to driving by myself. So that means that by the time I'm driving by myself, I'm going to have a minimum of 50,000 miles of experience, and just starting off, that's how my trucking career is going to start off with that, which is great, because there's a lot of trucking companies out there. They won't even look at your application unless you have 100,000 miles and or a year of experience. And so I'll already will have met half of that qualification. So like, let's just say if I work for Wilson for 6 months and I find a better employment opportunity somewhere else by the time I hit my 1 year / 100,000 miles experience, then I can go do that, But I most likely will just stick with Wilson, because since, excuse me, I only plan on being in the trucking trade long enough, maybe like a couple years, starting from when I'm driving by myself, so that I can have enough money to actually go to Mexico. Then, it makes sense for me to just stay with the company. And Wilson seems to be pretty good. It's not a big super carrier out there, if that's even the correct term, but it just, they seem to manage their drivers pretty well, and the training is really good. And so if you're looking for the best training possible so you can be the best, safest driver possible, go with Wilson. Um, Also, I'll end this video with sharing you a little safety incident that happened the last night I was driving at the end of my 25,000 miles. I ended up being dropped off at a hotel at a Saturday morning. And so I was basically driving it was one of those days where I was just driving all night long. And I actually saved another trucker's life. And what happened is that I was just going down the road. I was looking for I was looking for a truck stop so I could pull over and use the bathroom. And it just so happened that while I was looking for a truck stop, looking for signs that says truck stop, um, you know, there was this trucker in front of me that was weaving all over the road, going all over the dang the lanes, going past the white line on the right, almost going off the road a couple times. And you could tell this dude was just falling asleep behind the wheel or on drugs. Who knows what's going on? And it was even to the point where I didn't feel safe passing him. So, because he was going like 10 miles below the speed limit. So I decided I responded by just increasing my following distance. So if this guy crashes, I have enough response time to respond accordingly and not crash too. And the weather wasn't even that bad. I think it was like barely raining at the time. And but there was a point where we were crossing over a bridge, and this dude was about ready to go off that freaking bridge. So I blew my air horn, and I saw him immediately jerk away from the bridge. And then I found my exit to get off so I could go use the bathroom. And this dude passed the exit. I'm thinking, this dude needs to get off the road. So I know I saved his life. I know I kept him from going off that bridge, but for all I know, he probably died later on down the road. I don't know. But that's just an example of a lot of really unsafe drivers I've seen out there, so-called professional drivers. And it's like, wow, okay, I'm glad I chose Wilson Logistics because, yes, I'm as rookie as it gets, but God, have I learned so much on how to be a safe driver with Wilson. There's a lot of companies out there that say they have a huge focus in safety, but it usually turns out to be bullshit when it comes to the rubber meets the road. But that's not the truth with Wilson. Whenever there's a safety incident, they learn from it and adapt accordingly. A great example on how Wilson has adapted safety-wise is that there was recently an accident of one driver who ended up going down a road that says no truck route. And but to make a long story short, he ended up having to make a really tight turn, and it was one of those tight turns where you end up having to use the oncoming lane while making that turn so you don't get off the road. And it was a student driver who didn't know that, and his trainer was asleep in the cab. Basically what happened is that his tandem wheels ended up in a ditch, and they ended up having to use a crane to get that trailer out of the ditch. And so by the time I ended up doing my evaluation, my road test, it was the same road test I did while a CDL, but what they did is that they added a turn into the route that had a ditch that was the exact same situation, and they basically talked me through it because they wanted to make sure that every driver knows how to handle that turn. And that's how Wilson Logistics adapted to it, is that there was a specific accident that happened due to a specific type of situation. And now whenever they do a driving test or driving evaluation, they make sure that from now on every driver knows how to handle that turn. It was just a simple matter of knowing when to use the oncoming lane in order to safely make a tight turn. And it's not a big deal for super experienced drivers, but for student drivers, that's like calculus, so, but it was, once you learn it though, it's easy, but so I'm glad I had an opportunity to become an even safer driver just by doing evaluations. So that's how obsessed Wilson is with safety. So if you're looking for a trucking company and you're wanting to go the apprentice route and you don't have any experience, I highly recommend Wilson, because Wilson is they don't cut corners as much as other trucking companies do when it comes to training their drivers. So you want to be a safe driver, go for Wilson. But of course there's sort of a bonus program. So if you end up going to Wilson because of watching my videos, then tell them about my YouTube channel, because I'll actually get a bonus. So yeah, just go for Wilson if you're looking to be a good safe driver. If you have to go the apprentice route and you can't afford to go to college and take the huge course, which is the best decision you can make if you have the budget for that, if when it comes to being a safe driver. But all right, well, that's all I wanted to share this video. And if you're looking to get in the trucking trade, I wish you the best of luck. Be safe, and y'all have a good one.